Before we get started, I appreciate your 3 drink situation that you have going on.
Wait, you can see all of them?
No, but I saw you take a sip of water, a sip of beer,
Oh,
and
yeah.
a coffee.
Okay.
Well, there's even more that you're not seeing. So
The coffee, like, that is true. There's like a lot on this table. Yes, I got the coffee this morning before we drove out to Whitestown, and because I wanted to save it. We stopped to get donuts, and I wanted to save that for this afternoon. So
I feel like that's such a tech company thing. Is just like, if you don't have a minimum of 3 beverages, are you even working? You know what I mean?
Oh, I think it's like a mom thing too. The coffee is definitely like, yep, yeah. So.
Cool. Well, I'm super excited to get you guys on. I know that this has been a long time coming. Courtney, this was an idea that we talked about when we were both working at Perk. So for people that are listening, and you don't know, I used to work at a company called Perk. Courtney used to work at a company called Perk. That's where we kind of knew each other from. And you had told me, hey, we're kind of working on this brewery thing, and I'm really passionate about it. And at that time I was telling you, hey, I do this podcast thing and I'm really passionate about it. And we kind of both talking back and forth about how one day, we were planning on leaving to make it our full-time thing. And now you're over a year, right, in on making this your full-time thing. So I'm just super excited that we're both in this place. But if you can, Derek and Courtney, I'd love for you guys just to introduce yourselves to our listeners, tell them a little bit about who you are and how the brewery got started.
Yeah, so we are Courtney and Derek. So we're husband and wife. We are in a family business. So it's me, us, and my twin sister and her husband. So we're a small team of 5, because then you throw in a brother-in-law as well, who's taproom manager. But anyways, so the idea started, back in 2012?
yeah, around that.
Derek and I lived in Germany for a year. He's an engineer as a background. And so we lived over there for his engineering job. And we kind of fell in love with the beer culture over in Germany. And working in marketing, eventually we wanted to work for ourselves.
Right.
Right. So you can jump in here anytime too. So over there we fell in love with beer culture. He started home brewing quite a bit. And when Abby and Ryan, our partners, they lived in Denver at the same time and started home brewing there back in 2013, 2014. And when we moved back from Germany. So then we built a 1-barrel brew house in their basement in Broderbowl, where we lived 2 streets apart. And from there, we just literally built like a business plan back in 2015. And we opened last year. And there's a lot of details in between about how we got here in this exact location, how we have like a tie to the racing community as well, and kind of where our plans are for growth.
When you guys were in Germany, Derek, were you brewing there, or were you just appreciating the beer styles and the culture of Germany when you were there?
Well, so for me, I got to brew once or twice right before we actually left for Germany. And so that was right around graduation time. So right after I graduated, we moved over there. And really, I spent the time over there just enjoying beer. They have these great beer stores that basically had just aisles and aisles of, it may be only be 3 or 4 different beer styles, but you can try, 20, 30 different makers of each different beer style. And so I spent a lot of time just trying different stuff and eating a little bit of sport chocolate and really just, getting that whole drinking kind of beer culture experience over there.
Yeah, and what about it made you like it? I know that beer there is, at least it was for the most part. Maybe they're catching up now, but it wasn't like IPA and heavy stouts, right?
Right. Well, and so the difference is, before I went over there, I was still into drinking kind of light lager type beer. I hadn't really developed
like Busch Light lager.
Yeah.
Like
Busch
straight out
Light.
of college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to ask.
All the college stuff. And so once you go over there, that kind of stuff's not even out anymore. And so really, I think the beer, I guess, that made me fall in love with, I guess, more flavorful beer was the German Hefeweizen. And so that, I really spent, a lot of time just enjoying that over exactly. Yep. Our Guggenbeitzen. And so I really enjoyed, drinking that beer over there. And that's really kind of what got me started.
Okay. Yeah. And then you came back and were inspired or had an epiphany there. Like, was that where the seed was planted? Like, did you come back from Germany saying, man, we should do this one day?
Well, and I'm not sure what point it was when we were over in Germany, but at some point while we were over there, I was like, there's more to this that I want to get into. And so I started researching brewing. I started looking up ingredient books, tasting books. And so I started doing all this research while I was over there. So by the time I got back, I was already so amped up to start brewing. And then I started brewing over here. And really, I don't even know if it was one specific thing, but I knew even from that very first brew when I got back that this eventually was going to be something more for me.
Yeah. And so, and what year was that? You said, was that 2012?
So we got back, was it 2012?
It was, yeah, we were from 2011 to early 2012.
Yeah.
Is when you guys were there?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And so from that point to like business plan writing, how long was that time, and what were some of the things that were going on there? Like, did you know that this was always going to be a family business, or was it something that was just going to be the both of you guys for a point in time?
Well, I know at least for me, I spent the first couple of years just kind of enjoying brewing, really learning the craft kind of. And then it really wasn't until I think I listened to a podcast, I want to say it was about maybe our third year back, where a guy he just started from, I don't know if his own basement, but, a really small setup, something that we're familiar with. And he, built his business up over this time. And so kind of from that, I was like, maybe this is kind of a path that I can go down. And so really from there, it just kind of developed. And then it just turned out that Ryan was doing some home brewing over in Denver. And so he brought back some of his beers back over Christmas. We tried those. And really, I guess the discussion just kind of started there.
Yeah.
Were those beers good?
I think there's one that sticks out that we actually remade like a version of it, a white IPA, right? Yep. That was like the first one he had made in Denver, and we had a white IPA was our Halloween beer this year.
Oh, that's awesome.
I don't know if any of the other ones were.
Oh, yeah,
I've heard they were.
But...
And were you involved in brewing as well?
Me?
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. We enjoyed like watching, and we'd help mash in every now and then, but Derek's the one that really geeked out on it in the beginning. But it was kind of just a fun thing to do. So he started brewing on our kitchen, like on the stove. Mm-hmm. And then he built like a stand. So when it was nice out, he would brew outside. So it was nice just to hang out. And then it moved into the basement where it overtook the whole laundry area with like a hood and everything. And then it moved into Abby's basement, where it was literally an entire basement dedicated brewing. And we'd have friends and stuff over for tasting parties and focus groups. So I enjoyed the people part of it quite a bit as well.
Yeah. And I mean, beer's so social, there's such a culture around like just being social around that activity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and I think Courtney maybe wasn't necessarily sold on the whole idea at first.
Okay. The whole idea came about like right when we were expecting our first child. So yes,
Mm-hmm.
It was quite an emotional roller coaster at the time.
But I think one of the things that kind of turned around for her is, I believe it was a girls' pen out event. Mm-hmm. I don't remember which brewery she went to, but essentially she got a better feel for kind of the whole social and maybe the culture aspect of breweries and really what she could have to bring from from that standpoint.
The
giving back
and
that's stuff.
All of that kind of pours into our brand today too. So that's kind of from that aspect of it, making something feel like our home, like we're literally in a house. That's where we're based of a house. So being able to bring that aspect of bringing community together, that kind of goes back to one of the things that really turned me on in the beginning too.
Yeah. And Derek, do you remember the podcast that you were listening to in the brewery that, was telling the story that got started?
Yeah, well, so it's from the Brewing Network, and they have a few different shows. I think that might have been the session, maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was one of those shows, and I can't recall the name of that brewery anymore. But yeah, it was basically once I listened to that one, I started listening to a lot more, and really, honestly, I've been doing that ever since. Just listening to the background stories on, I guess at this point, probably hundreds of breweries that I've listened to over this time. It's just neat to hear how all these different places started.
Yeah, and that's a great show. By the way, when we first got our house, I homebrewed for a little bit, and it was largely in part to that show. So I'm a huge fan of JP on that show. It's pretty hilarious.
Well, I think it was Bruce Strong was another one. And that was with Jamil, and I think that may have been where that guy was on. But yeah, they had some good shows there. I still listen to them.
Yeah, and do you think that had you not, been formally trained as an engineer, that you would have taken some of this on? Like, just hearing how your brew system kind of got built up over time, does that give you a lot of confidence just in knowing that, hey, I can reverse engineer a lot of stuff and figure out how it works, and like these formulas for recipes really make a lot of sense in my brain. Just it's how I approach things.
Yeah, well, I think it's less maybe about my training engineering and more about that's just kind of the way I am. And then engineering happened to fit, I guess, the kind of things that I like to do and the ways I think and things like that. But certainly it definitely makes things less imposing, kind of being able to kind of break down a little bit more maybe.
It makes us all very comfortable. I mean, there was a time period, and maybe for 3 months, where literally a gadget came in the mail every day. And I was like, oh, it's another little gadget for him to tweak
another
something.
little stainless piece, yeah.
So talk a little bit about the branding, about the name, about kind of the mission. You guys are pretty unique, not just in some of the beer styles that you decided to make from the onset, but just your location, I think, is really unique. And just the history behind the building that's next to your current brewery. So talk a little bit about that for people that aren't familiar.
Sure. So back in 2015, like I said before, we created our business plan, and it's really hard to name a brewery. So we went through so many different whiteboard sessions of what to call ourselves. And we wanted something, something unique, something that tied in German experiences that was so impactful kind of on where we are today. And then we wanted something, we eventually landed on something that reflected our actual name. So Guggman Haus. Gugman is a combination of our last name, which is Guggenberger, and my sister's last name, Abby and Ryan's last name, of Gorman, so Gugman. And then, like I said about the German aspect, Haus is spelled that way, kind of as a tribute to our time over there. And we wanted to build something that felt like an extension of our home. So we wanted to have that house, that homey piece to it. And so that's where the name comes from. And this was created before we found our location. So, and kind of with the actual logo and stuff as well, it's a cabin with a river, the river and the path and the trees. We wanted just that woodsy feel, especially since my sister had time in Denver, in the mountains, and we just wanted something cozy. So that's kind of how we landed on that specific piece of our branding. If you haven't been here before, for those of you listening, we're actually in a house that looks like our logo. And we had no idea we were going to be in a house before our logo was created. So we had our branding and everything, and then we went to look for a location. And we had started to look in Broad Ripple, because that's what we're familiar with. We both lived there. And through just a meeting we had at the time with a local banker that was tied into the microbrewery scene, he told us of this group of people that were trying to save an old racing building. So we heard that, and it's on the near west side of just downtown Indianapolis. And we heard that, and we're like, this is intriguing. Might be, more of a project than we initially thought. And then we came to look at the location. It literally hadn't been touched in 12 years. Graffiti on the walls, it was just dilapidated.
Yeah, the roof had collapsed at some point. Yeah, and
it was beautiful in its, most unique way of ivy growing in these broken windows and a dirt floor and a skylight that had fallen in. And it's about that portion of it, give or take 15,000 square feet. So it's pretty large. Anyways, so they had a vision for restoring this building. And in the 30s and 40s, it was home to Wilbur Shaw, 3-time winner of the Indianapolis 500. And it was his racing garage. He raced for the Boyle Racing team under the owner, Mike Boyle. And there's a lot of other famous names that are associated with that team as well. But he won the race 3 times, and then he went on to be the president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And he actually saved it from, he helped orchestrate the purchase of the track before it got turned into a subdivision. And so
Wow.
there's
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So there was an opportunity that the Motor Speedway was going to be turned into like a housing addition.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was right
Wow.
around World War II. They basically stopped using it. They went into disrepair, and we're going to tear it down.
Jeez,
So-
we would be living in a much different city if that
Yeah.
would have happened.
Yeah. So Wilbur Shaw is a very well-known name and a very, obviously, just a great icon of the city. And so that was his racing garage. So when there was a demo order on this building, and this group of racing enthusiasts found out about that, and so they wanted to save the building, but they needed a partner, a tenant, so to speak, to go into it to make it viable from a revenue perspective, because, you know, just to build an old racing garage back up again wasn't so much of a business model as more getting someone in there that could produce revenue, and then have part of it be attributed to the racing history. So that's how we ended up here. And that took forever to get up and going, and it has not even started yet. And so this house sitting on the property, we switched directions like a year and a half in and said, can we, you know, let's get the house up and going first, start brewing, establish ourselves, and work on getting the bigger building, which will end up being 17,000 square feet, up and going as soon as we can.
And the house was also there next to the building, or no?
Yeah, it was actually attached to the building. So kind of over time, it started off on one part of the property, then it kind of expanded over the years. And eventually there was kind of a carport area that actually went from the other building to this place.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was all one connected building at that point.
Yeah, and I couldn't remember the last time we were in there, and I mean, this certainly isn't a new thing, but you guys have a book that has pictures of like from before construction even got started that kind of shows a progression, right? Of like how that house took shape.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll have another one when the main building's actually done, but it's just been interesting, and it's kind of nice to have, it's like a coffee table book. People enjoy going through it to see what this place actually looked like before. I mean, it was insane.
Yeah, there wasn't much that was left in good condition here. Again, I mean, the roof had collapsed here. Basically everything had to be gutted out of this place. It was such bad shape.
But you could see, I'm sure your brain was thinking like, oh yeah, we could put this down here and this up there. And
yeah, I think the vision for how it actually kind of is laid out now, it started pretty early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Got it. So then what, how long did it take before you guys actually got into the building, right? Like when you made the decision to get it to when you can actually start brewing in there, what were you guys doing to bide your time there?
A lot of waiting. Yeah. The amount of like red tape, permitting, and just everything associated with the property that hasn't had no utilities in over 12 years. It was a waiting game. And at the same time, we were also like continuously working on recipes. So like I said earlier, we had we had focus groups where we would literally like brew the recipes, have people try them, have people write down feedback. And so that's how we came to have our 6 core beers today. So we used the waiting time to prepare as best we could,
Mm-hmm.
For not necessarily knowing what was around every corner ahead. But
And what are the 6 core beers that you guys make?
So the 6 house beers that we have on the majority of the time. So we have our Pilsner, which is named for Wilbur Shaw, Wilbur's Prize Pils. His son actually came in and tried the beers and gave us his approval to name it after his father. So that's pretty cool. He's a very nice man. So we have Wilbur's Prize Pilsner. We have our Winter's Milk Jug Stout, and we have Boyle Brown. And those are 3 that are named for the racing history of this place. And then we have our Riverside New England IPA, which I think I gave you as well. And that's named for the neighborhood that we reside in. You got it? And then we have our Guggenbergers and Hefe. And back me up. Oh, our Great Day IPA. That's our 6th one. That's our house, just a house, kind of American IPA.
Yep.
Gotcha. And where you guys are at, where's the next closest brewery? Is it Sun King?
No, so we're 2 miles from Speedway. So you have Daredevil over there. There's a few kind of downtown. I mean, we're just a mile or so from Monument Circle. So anything kind of within the realm of downtown, we are right there.
And what's been the number one seller from your 6 core beers? Anything that surprised you?
Well, I think one of the things that surprised us was actually our Hefeweizen, so our Guggenweizen.
Mhm.
That and the Riverside, which is our hazy IPA. Those two actually vie kind of week to week on which one's the best seller. Overall, I would say the Riverside, but they usually are pretty close.
It's so interesting. I think that like Indy's a weird city. You know, you have breweries, and ostensibly the biggest in the city in Sun King, whose number one sellers and even their core lineup is made up of a pale ale, a cream ale, and like a Scottish like ale, right? And it's just like, okay, those are very weird, but they're like still number one sellers. And then you guys are making a heft, and it's your number one seller. Like, did that surprise you that that's what drinkers would want to have in a time where they're rampant for hoppy, juicy, slushy whatevers?
I think for the people that aren't into, the next double dry hopped beer, the Hefe is just a really nice choice. It's not overpowering, but it's still has a lot of flavor. We try to make all of our beers with bold flavors, and we serve it in the traditional German Hefeweizen glass, and it's just a nice experience to drink it.
Yeah, well, and we knew it was something special. I really hadn't had a Hefe like that since living over in Germany, and so I knew that ours, obviously from our perspective, at least as close as you're going to get to really experiencing that same type of Hefe that you would get over there. So,
Right.
it was always very popular when people came over to visit, but it's always hard to know how that's going to translate to actually when you open your business and start selling it.
Right. You don't know what the general public's going to react to. What do you think it is about that beer that makes it so unique that people like it?
I think it's really about, so we spend a lot of time focusing on the process for that one. Over in Germany, they do some processes that are fairly, I'd say, maybe difficult for libraries here in the U.S. to do. We happen to have the ability to duplicate some of those or replicate some of those processes. Some of those include special mash rests, decoction, certain pitch rates, aeration. There's a lot of different small steps that make the Hefe actually one of the most challenging beers to brew, at least in a way that makes it similar to what you get over in Germany. So I think bringing all those different, challenging aspects together and doing them right has helped really make it stand out.
When you think that's what maybe keeps some people away from actually attempting to do it, it's just the time intensiveness and kind of the ability for error on some of those things.
Oh, certainly. It's hard. Even in Germany, you'll talk to the brewers and they'll say it's the hardest beer to consistently brew. And so, yeah, certainly, if you're an American brewer over here that maybe doesn't even brew it very often, it's going to be hard to make it the same way each and every time.
Yeah. Well, I will say that your Pilsner is one of my favorite beers in town, and I'm typically more of like a slutty beer drinker to where I'm looking for like the newest, hoppiest thing with like cereal and anything else in it. So for that to happen is quite a feat because it's just delicious. It's crisp. You can drink it anytime. Talk a little bit about your Pilsner because I've heard that same feedback from other people, like people that I respect in beer here in town, good friends of mine that really love your Pils.
Yeah. So we do ours a little bit different. So over in Germany, the Pilsner over there wasn't necessarily my favorite type of beer. So we wanted to make it a little bit different here. And so what we did was we took a lot of the same base you'd have over in Germany, but instead we incorporate some kind of bright, fruity American hops. We make sure it's not over the top. We're not trying to make it a pale ale. We're not trying to make it an IPA. But it's enough to where it's really crisp. You get some of this really nice kind of citrus that comes through. And we all keep the alcohol pretty low, so it makes it a kind of nice, drinkable beer. And I think just overall it all comes together kind of, to be a really nice kind of, let's say, light Pilsner substitute for those people that aren't used to drinking, let's say, craft beer. They come in, they really enjoy that kind of little extra bit of citrus and flavor that's in it.
Yeah. And have you guys hit the type of growth that you were looking for when you wrote the business plan? I know it's hard to kind of accurately gauge how people will respond, but have you guys exceeded expectations for what you wrote out?
So when we wrote, yes and no, I think when we wrote the business plan, it was based on opening like the larger tap room. We've had larger equipment. So right now we're brewing on we've upgraded from 2 to 3 to 4 barrels in our tiny little basement, but we have a 5-barrel system that's been in storage for like 3 years. And
Wow.
so, you know, over there when it's built, we're going to have a bigger brew space, bigger tap room, be able to host bigger events and that type of thing. So we have plans for growth, and we want to get there. But as far as the house, I'd say yes. What would you say?
Yeah, well, it was hard to know what to expect. And I think one of the challenges was kind of just the area that we're in. You know, it's not right on the direct path of, you know, people leaving town necessarily. It's off the beaten path. For anyone that's been here, you know, they can see that. You come out here and you're out in the country. So it's a little bit hard for people to find. You know, people aren't just necessarily walking by the place. So I think it took a little while longer maybe for people to find us initially. But really once it started taking off, it really was picking up a lot of speed, at least until recently when all of this stuff started happening.
To that too, I think being out here, and it's not like we're far, you know, we're 8 minutes from Monument Circle or 10, but that's kind of what has set us apart too. It's a unique location. Like there's huge soybean silos and it's little retreat. Like if you do feel like you're on a farm when you look certain ways, and we're able to have a huge parking lot, which is a huge plus. You know, we've learned since being in business, having an easy accessible parking, and we're able to have a very spread out, nice beer garden. So the location has been like a really positive thing for us.
For sure.
And then we had been working on cans, kind of to follow up what you're saying. We've been working on cans for quite a few months, and it timed out perfectly so that when we hit the unfortunate pandemic, we were ready to start canning within a few weeks of being shut down. And what we've learned is cans make you more accessible. And we've actually had more people learn about us since we started canning. So.
Yeah. And was that something that was originally included in the business plan, or was that something that you guys kind of changed as a result of just market feedback from, you know, the response that you guys were getting?
Well, cans is something we knew we would eventually do. For a system as small as ours, it's not necessarily practical to do a lot of canning. It's very manual, and so it takes a lot of time. I think certainly, you know, as we're getting towards the end of our time in this house, at least for brewing, and shifting into the next building, we wanted to start building it more so we could kind of ramp into that as we got into the next building. But of course, that all started a lot sooner than we were anticipating. But yeah, we had these plans for a while to at least start.
Yeah. And do you guys have a canning line there? Do you guys have somebody that comes in and does it mobily? Like how does that work for you guys?
So we've hand canned. It's a one manual seamer.
One can at a time, one 12-ounce can at a time.
But yeah, and that's one of the things that we try to share, to show how small we truly are, because we might have a beer that we're going to put out, like a milkshake, and it's 3 or 4 barrels, maybe usually just 2 barrels actually.
Yeah.
It's 2 barrels, and we literally hand can all of it, and it's like we want to brew more, but right now we can't because we don't have the space to do that. But I mean, we've hand canned 15,000 cans in the last few months.
Oh my gosh.
Cans. Yeah. Which
Did
is
you guys
it's
shit on who gets to do that? Like whose job it is to can it?
Yeah, it's Ryan and Tyler's job right now.
They've got it down good. They got a good process going.
Yeah. When you weigh every can, you know, it's somewhat.
There's a lot to it.
Yeah.
So. That's crazy. I didn't know that you guys are doing that's legit, true, handcrafted beer from start to finish.
Yeah.
You got to put that in your messaging or something.
Yeah.
So you talked about one of your core beers being this New England style IPA. I love that you guys opened up having something like that. Since then, you know, you've iterated quite a bit on that style. And from what I've heard, just the feedback has been wonderful, like the reaction to what you guys are doing. So talk a little bit about why you guys decided to do those style of beers and really kind of hone in on that.
Well, I think it goes back probably about 5 years. So I think this was really when kind of the hazy IPA started. There really wasn't anything available in the area. We had something at the time that we actually was kind of like a hoppy wheat type beer. But we knew that it was kind of similar to how you would make these hazy IPAs. So we switched around the yeast we were using. and tried that way. And like from that first batch, I just loved it. I wasn't even real big into IPAs even necessarily before that. But as soon as we switched into that, it was kind of game over for me as far as enjoying hazy IPAs. And then once we got over here, I think we really just want to take advantage of kind of the small system that we had. It gives us a lot of chances to do more experimentation maybe than some people get to do. And so for us, it was really about me exploring more into the hazy IPAs and figuring out what hop combinations I enjoy the best. And really there's so much to explore that I really enjoy just kind of keep making new iterations of it. And thankfully people enjoy the beer too.
Yeah, and you guys have been fruiting a lot of them, right, on the milkshake style. So what differentiates the milkshake IPA from the New England IPA?
So the milkshakes, what they'll do is they kind of the two big things are usually add lactose, some milk sugar to the milkshake IPAs, and you also have vanilla. And so those combined with the fruit will give you kind of that nice kind of silky, round, maybe a little bit sweeter type of flavor. So you still get a lot of that same hazy IPA kind of fullness, juiciness from the hops, and things like that. But then you add the fruit on top of it to create even more of that kind of sensation and bring it all together.
Compared to the New England.
As far as?
Oh, well, and just on the regular New Englands, where it's not fruited, being able to experiment and focus more on the actual flavor of the hops is what really excites us. I think there's so many new hops on the market and people love hops and the flavor they can bring. And I think, at least from my perspective, when we're making the New England, it's not, it's not so focused on the bitterness that the hop promotes, but when you're double dry hopping, it's promoting more of the actual flavors that come out of the hops. A lot of them have fruit characteristics, that type of thing.
Yeah, so there are so many unique flavors that you get from these hops, and it can be somewhat unexpected because a lot of these hops, when they go through the fermentation process that occurs with the hazy IPAs, it actually transforms the hops a little bit, and it takes them from, let's say, for example, it might take it from like a grapefruit flavor and it turns into like a pineapple or a peach. It creates these new flavors to it. And so you really kind of never know what's going to happen when you try a new hop. That's one of the things that I enjoy is, you really get to see what a hop can do when it kind of goes through this experience. And so that's really been what I enjoy too.
So when you're messing around with new hops, and this is something that I heard actually on the Brewing Network, do you just order it and just say, screw it, we're going to see what happens if I throw it into this big batch of beer and it might suck, but you've wasted 5 gallons of beer? Or is it something like they talked about taking whole cone hops and putting it into a Bud Light, and then being able to taste the flavor of the hop through that? Like, is that a real thing? Have you ever done it? Like, what is your process for working with new hops?
Well, so we've tried some of that, and that does okay. I think some of it is really, doing a lot of research, finding out, maybe other people's experiences with the hops. There's, it's impossible to try every hop, so sometimes it comes down to having to look at the description of what's supposed to be in the hop. You also kind of have to rely on your suppliers. So for example, we work with Crazy Horse, and so and they're very honest. We can ask them, what kind of flavors do you get from, they grow a lot of different hops at their location, and so we ask them, what do you get from your Chinook that you grow there? What do you get from your copper hops you grow there? And so we'll kind of take the information and say, okay, well, we would like to try this hop. And so one of the ways that I try hops is we'll take our Riverside base. And so we already know kind of what that is going to taste like. It already has a nice kind of background to it. And then we usually will double the amount of hopping and use that second portion of hopping to focus on the new hop that we're trying. So what that lets us do is we already know we have a great beer to start with, and then we add this new hop to it. And since we know that kind of base beer so well, we know what this new hop adds once we taste it at the end. So I would say it's hard to go wrong when you already have a nice base beer and you add a hop to it.
Right.
And so I think that helps somewhat with it, because obviously we do rely on these beers. We want them to turn out well. It's not, we can't necessarily afford to just take a shot in the dark usually. So we put a lot of time and effort into kind of this upfront research and things like that first.
Yeah. What's your current favorite hop to work with?
For me, I would say I'd probably pick a couple of between Strata and Sabro. Strata is they're both relatively new hops. Strata has this really kind of nice berry, strawberry type flavor. And then Sabro actually adds this really neat, adds some nice citrus notes, but also has this really neat coconut flavor to it.
Interesting.
Yeah, it sounds a little weird, but actually it comes through really nice on these beers.
I'm actually a huge fan of coconut in an IPA. I think that it works really well. We were in, I think we were somewhere in Michigan, and we stopped by a brewery that had like this Hawaiian IPA that I don't know how they were infusing the coconut into it. Maybe they had just put coconut actually into the beer, but I'm like, man, this flavor like combination is so good.
Oh yeah.
When you guys opened up, when you first opened your doors, like what was that like? Like obviously you have like friends and family days, and you get the rush of people that are coming through that support you because they know who you are and they love you and they want to make sure that you do well. But that's all gone, and now it's like first full day to the public. What was that day like? How many people came through the door? Were you crapping your pants and saying, "Gosh, we made a bad decision," or "Man, I feel really good about what we did"?
So we soft opened on May 23rd. So it was right before race weekend last year. And then our grand opening was on June 15th. So we had like a little less than a month of like soft opening time. That was good practice for us. And then on June 15th for our grand opening, it was packed. And we didn't stand there, but we kind of stood there and like, not disbelief, because like this is what we had worked for. And like, we kind of just, I guess you could say we vision boarded out, and like it happened. But it was amazing to see the amount of like support that we had out the gate from people that we did not know.
Well, and what she's not mentioning too is that day there was like a monsoon outside.
Oh no!
But our grand opening, our beer garden is like twice the size of our taproom itself, and so we had this monsoon going on that we didn't know what to expect. But people were still coming in. We had a tent outside, like thankfully for people to go underneath. And yeah, it sure didn't seem to stop anyone.
I was there for that. No, I remember that. We were on our way. We were actually on our way out of town, and we stopped into. I think we stopped and grabbed a pint of beer and sat in the basement.
Yep, you're right here where we are now. I remember seeing you here too. Yep.
Okay, so opening day was great. Opening week, opening month, like. Was there a difference there? Was there any point, I guess what I'm trying to get to is just was there any point where you were like absolutely terrified of the decision that you had made? Because you quit your job once you guys opened. Is that right, Courtney?
Yeah, I quit on May 3rd and Derek quit 3 weeks later. So call us crazy.
So by the time that you had grand opened, you were both like, we're in it to win it or not.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying we knew we had to be, just because obviously she had a lot of work that she was doing from a marketing side, but me, during that whole time we were doing renovations here, we were doing brewing, all that kind of stuff, and I was easily spending 100 hours a week, between my job and then over here, and it was like, if we're gonna make this work, I gotta just pick one thing, and so that kind of made that decision at least fairly easy.
And I'd say like, to where we are now, it's hard to say since obviously we're in the middle of, like, we haven't had our doors actually open since the beginning of March. And so word of mouth has been a huge thing for us. We try to have a really good social media presence. So over time, and the amount of people that have found out about us grew. I think in the beginning, we didn't know what to expect. And we were hoping that, everybody that loves craft beer just all of a sudden would know that we're here. But from what I've learned and just over time and like handling the marketing side of things, that takes time. And we're, from my perspective, we'd go into, if we had a slower weekend, I'd be like, well, what did I do wrong? Like, back at it, like what new channels can we hit to get more people to know about us and that type of thing. So we try to be on it from that perspective, but we're excited to see kind of where we'll be as far as, when we're actually back to normal, when we open.
Well, and I feel like there's always the fear, and myself just being a marketer and what we do with our podcast is just like, am I beating people over the head too much with our messaging and like being too in front of your face? Because at one point you want to be like, I need to tell everybody and I need to tell them a million times. And then the other part of you is like, oh my gosh, am I just like giving them too much? And will they just turn it off because they don't want to hear it anymore?
Yeah. when people come in, and I agree with you, because, you know, I don't like to be the pesky one, but, you know, knowing, you know, I look at Facebook personally, like a lot, in my Instagram and that kind of stuff. And if you don't stay top of mind, then you're not top of mind. And so, you know, there's things that you can do, I think, and balance it out. But when I've had people in here and they're like, oh, I read this in the newsletter, and I personally thank them for reading my newsletter that I, you know, work on every week. And someone was in here one time and he's like, yeah, you guys I saw you on Facebook for like 3 weeks in a row. And I'm like, and here you are. So it worked. So
yeah.
I don't know. It's an art and science, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and like first and foremost, the table stakes are you have to make good beer, right? Like you really absolutely have to make great beer, especially in time where, you know, we are having this boom in craft beer, especially in our city. But what do you think? Do you think that marketing is the second most important thing outside of that, or is it like the culture that you have? You know, the feeling that people get when they walk into your tap room. Like, what do you think is that other factor that gets people coming back?
I think it's those are one and the same. Like, obviously your taproom experience is, you know, it's dependent on what you experience within these walls, but we try to incorporate that into the marketing. So every photo we take has thought behind it, and we try to kind of give off the feeling that this place is an extension of our home. And we obviously, you do have to have good beer, I think. And we were not lucky enough, but like within 6 weeks of opening, 3 of our house beers won gold medal at the Indiana Brewers Cup. And so that was validation for ourselves. And that kind of threw us on the scene a little bit. And people were like, Guggman Haus, who? And so that spiked some curiosity to explore us more. But kind of going back to your question, to me, it's marketing and culture. It's one and the same, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think is a big mistake that you guys have made along the way? Like, if you can reflect on being open for over a year, is there a decision that you guys made that said that was not the right one? And, you know, have you learned from that? Or what did you learn from that?
I'm not sure. I guess there's nothing initially that comes to mind. Obviously, we had a lot of time to think about stuff before we opened.
Yeah. You know, I think going back, we're big believers in, you know, learning from things and kind of envisioning what we want it to be and then going after it. So it'd be easy to say, like, a big mistake was just not starting on a bigger system, because now we're trying to get fermenters outside and we're spending all this extra time trying to brew as much as we can and that kind of thing. But there's so many positives to the situation that we're in now that it's hard to call it a mistake, I guess. Yep. So.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess look at it on the other side. If you had started much bigger, you know, not knowing that coronavirus would hit, what would that have done to your business currently, right? That could have had an impact on it.
Yeah, well, and there's two sides to that too. I mean, people that start, you can start off kind of too small. Like, we weren't necessarily too small. I think we were the right size. You know, it gave us a chance to always have really fresh beer, try new things and all that. You can also start too big, to where your beer, you know, it takes time for people to start coming and visiting, you know, to really build up that fan base. And so, you know, you start off too big, then suddenly you have beer that is, you know, old by the time, you know, you kind of get to the last keg of it. And so that doesn't give people a good experience. And so I think, you know, I think we did, at least it was maybe luck that we just happened to be growing in a way to where, you know, we're able to grow with our fans at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Say.
So like supply and demand were kind of going up at the same time, and one wasn't out of balance with the other.
Yeah. I mean, so if we had a bigger system, we could do more distribution to restaurants. We could do canning, all that kind of stuff. But at least for what we have here in the tap room, it's worked out well. You know, and once we move into the next building, we'll be able to explore more of those you know, different options. But for now, the focus really is on creating the experience here in the tap room and really just making beers for people that want to come visit here.
Yeah. Well, I loved my experiences that I've had there. It really is one of the most unique places that you can go to in town because it is a house and it is homey and there's a coziness and comfort level that you get with that, with having those couches there. And you're just like, I'm sitting in a living room, right? Just like having a beer. And there's something really cool about that is walking through the front door of a house. And then there's a bar inside there. You don't really get that anywhere else.
Yeah, it turned out better than we could have imagined when it comes to what this place feels like and looks like. So we are pretty happy with it.
And you should be. Let's talk about you. You were so gracious and kind to drop off these beers for me to be able to taste. And I was telling you before we started recording that I miss having this portion of the show. It was such a big part of what we did, and we had to make some changes, and we haven't been able to do that. I wish I could have been there today in person drinking these with you, but they're both so good. So I know we talked about them a little bit, but go into a little bit more detail on each of these so that people that are listening can go out there and try them themselves and they kind of know what to expect. And I'd love for you to start with the Hefeweizen.
Sure. Yep. So we style ours after the German Hefeweizen. And so kind of the main focus with that type of beer is, so it's heavily wheat beer. So there's a lot more wheat in it compared to a normal beer. And some of the unique flavors that you actually get with this type of beer will be a lot of clove as well as banana flavor. And so depending on how you brew this beer, it kind of changes the ratio of how much clove you have to how much banana, because they're in essence kind of they're balancing flavors. And so we really focus on having a lot of both of those flavors in the beer, but have it to where it's not overpowered by one or the other.
And there's a certain thing that like that style of beer can sometimes give me a headache, and maybe other people experience this. I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but I haven't had it with this beer, but there's something in that like banana clove, like combination that can really quickly just like turn the corner and like go straight to headache for me. And I don't know what it is, but
yeah, so sometimes that could be the fermentation process. Depending on how you ferment things, you can create some what they call like higher alcohols that maybe can create some of those headache type flavors. I think it's one of the things that we do really well is our fermentations. So yes, I at least have not experienced that from ours, and that's not the feedback that we've gotten. But yeah, overall, I think our fermentations do very well.
And are you guys planning on doing any like iterations or variations on a hef, or doing another one at all? Like, would you change the hops out, or is this like pretty traditional, like you can only make it one way?
Well, we had I guess maybe now might be a fortunate accident. So we were going to can one day, and we actually, the way our kegs are set up, sometimes you have one keg flowing to the other one. It's a way to kind of help with the bar, or the Tyler upstairs who's behind the bar, helps him so he doesn't have to change kegs as much. And so we had it hooked up like that when we were going to do a candy run, and accidentally hooked up one portion of that to the Riverside keg. And so for a while there, we're like, we're canning the Riverside, but it really has kind of this Hefeweizen flavor. What's going on here? And so eventually we realized what happened. We stopped, and we're like, the Hefeweizen with this kind of really nice kind of citrus kind of background to it actually is really good.
So coming soon.
So we're still working on what that would look like. But yes, that definitely opened the door for maybe some neat options going forward.
We did try. God. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that would be so cool if like a new beer kind of combination kind of came out of this weird accident that happened.
Yeah, I was gonna say we did try a strawberry Hefeweizen, and we did not serve that. That was one of the few that we have not served because it was
some odd interaction between the strawberry and the Hefe just didn't turn out the way we were hoping.
Yeah. Smelled kind of funky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you try it with a different fruit, or like I feel like maybe would it make sense like age one in a wine barrel or something?
Maybe. I think it's something we'll explore more in the future. Trying the fruit again. Maybe just didn't work that combination, or just that particular time. Maybe it just didn't. So something we'll try again. And I have heard of people aging Hefeweizens in barrels. I'm not sure if I'm ready to kind of jump into that quite yet.
Yeah.
But, I think we've learned to definitely never say never when it comes to things. So it will definitely leave that option open.
Definitely. And is barrel aging something that you guys have done, are thinking about on the road, like on the path for what you guys want to be doing?
So with the larger building that we'll have next door, we'll have space to store barrels. Basically, barrels just take up a lot of space, and we just don't have any space for that right now. They take a lot of time, and so it's not something we can focus on at this point, but it's definitely something we want to get into.
Awesome. And just quick rundown on the Riverside.
Yep. So the Riverside, so it's our house, hazy IPA. It's one that we've been making probably for close to 5 years now. Started in Ryan's basement. And one of the main focuses on this one is that it has 5 different hops in the dry hop, as well as another 3 hops in the boil. And so we use a wide variety of hops, and it kind of creates this really nice citrus, pineapple, grapefruit flavor. So this one focuses more on being a let's say lighter body. I mean, it still has, it's not low in alcohol necessarily. It's 6.9 usually around there. But it focuses on being a little bit lighter drinker with more focus on the bright citrus, pineapple, grapefruit type flavors.
It's absolutely delicious. And even as like it got a little warm from when I opened it up, and that even still is bringing out these like even more flavor than I didn't know it had in there. So kudos to you for making this beer. What can you talk about what hops are in there?
Yeah, so the hops at least for dry hop. So we use Cascade, Centennial, Chinook. So it's surprising for a lot of people because it's actually a lot of the classic hops that we use in here. And like I said, kind of that biotransformation process that goes on during fermentation really kind of brings out most of those flavors. So Amarillo and Simcoe are another couple ones that we use in there. People are usually really surprised when they hear the hop combination that we use, because they're like, oh, is there a ton of Citra in the dry hop, or is there a big secret? They'll kind of pick out these really big name hops that could be in there. But really, it's kind of just the nice combination of all these, classic hops that we use that really kind of makes that beer.
I'm shocked that there's that many of the C hops in there. But that, I mean, again, kudos to you for being able to pull out those flavors with those hops. Was it because you really enjoyed those, or was it a result of, hey, we're just a brewery that's getting started and this is what we have the most access to make a beer that's going to be a house style?
No, it actually started off that way. I think at the time when we started making this, a lot of the popular hops nowadays weren't actually even available. And so it really started off with, those were kind of the hops that were around. And so we started off with those. And we have made iterations since with some of the more popular hops. Because like I said, we do a lot of kind of the double hop version for Riverside. So we'll do it with Mosaic. We'll do it with, I think the most recent one was Galaxy.
Copper.
Copper. And so we'll do a lot of these other ones. But really, a lot of these flavors just come from, just the way that the yeast and the hops interact during this process.
Yeah.
And actually, I guess to kind of go back to that, we started this around a time where basically if you didn't contract your hops, you basically weren't supposed to be even able to get them. And so we actually even had these classic hops contracted for, years before we even opened it. Thankfully we were able to kind of restructure those contracts so that we're able to use, current year, hop crops. So thankfully that turned out okay.
Yeah. That goes back. Everything takes longer than you think it will.
Yes.
So
yep.
Yes.
Yep. So even back then we had planned on using these hops. And one of the more recent changes that we've made actually is Crazy Horse, they grow Chinook. And so I think one of the unique things about the Indiana Chinook compared to like the West Coast style Chinook is that you get a little more of the pineapple kind of that comes through. Whereas usually with more West Coast, it's a little more kind of the pine and dank type flavors. And so we recently switched out our Chinook from the West Coast with the ones from Crazy Horse. And so we'll at least try and do some of that same type of mixing moving forward.
Wow. And how much has that beer changed from when you first started brewing it to what I'm drinking today?
I think there are some changes that you have to make when you scale up recipes. So I think the very first batch that we made here, we basically had scaled everything up, 1-to-1. So basically we took it from the normal batch sizes we were making, 5-10 gallon batches, up to the 2-barrel batches that we were making here. And I think what we wanted to find a little bit more hop flavor or aroma in the beers. And so we've actually increased the amount of hops that we use in it since we brewed it at home. And I think that's actually a fairly common thing that I've heard too, is that you get a little more out of your hops as a home brewer than you do as a pro brewer. So usually you have to add a little bit more.
Right.
And I think overall, the beer just in general, just the processes that you're able to do in a production brewery, you have more access to things that help keep out, let's say, oxygen, for example, during the packaging process and things like that. So really, overall, the beer has even got better since we were able to take it into a production setting. So I would say that's been a huge positive for us.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And obviously things have gotten crazy over these last 90 days or so that we've had to deal with the coronavirus. But it kind of looks like there's some light at the end of the tunnel with reopening going on here next week. What does that mean for you guys? Is there good news up front for fans of your brewery, people that enjoy drinking your beer and want to be outside on a patio?
Yeah. So first I wanted to say thank you to all of our Guggman Haus friends that have supported us over the last few months, because it has been, like, we have felt so much love from the community from doing our curbside. So we switched to curbside as soon as we had a shutdown. I think that next week we had our website up and we were rolling with that. But we are looking forward to next week. So I think when this airs, we will be open in the beer garden. And then as the state lifts, as the county lifts restrictions for in-house dining, we'll look at that. But we're so small on the inside that we'd be able to maybe have like 2 or 3 small groups in the main tap room. So we're going to be really reliant for a while on our outdoor seating. So, but we are so excited. We've been staining tables, planting flowers, and it just brings a smile to my face to think about people actually here enjoying the space that we've tried to create for them.
And what about new and exciting beers for people to try when they get there? Can you give us a little bit of a scoop on some stuff that you guys are working on?
Well, so we always are working on more. We will have over the next probably 2 or 3 weeks, we'll have another, I think 2 or 3 more milkshake IPAs that'll come out. We'll have a couple more hazy IPAs at least, maybe 3 or 4 versions of those. So we've really been working hard to bring, some new, even more variety of our hazy IPAs and milkshakes.
Yeah. we did not go into this necessarily knowing or thinking that milkshakes would become such a popular thing, but
no,
people like the milkshake style. So we're going to keep doing our best to innovate it and improve it.
Well, yeah, even when we first started, I had maybe like one example of it before. And so, when we were first opening, I was like, I'm not really into this whole fruiting thing.
Yeah, he thought he would never be fruiting beers. Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, I'm not sure if we'll really do this fruiting thing. And then, we put strawberry in there into the milkshake for the first time. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good.
Yeah.
But it kind of took on from there. So we do a wide variety of milkshakes. We do fruited saisons in addition to normal saisons. Really, we try and mix it up and bring out some just really neat fruit and hop combinations.
Yeah, I love it. And for somebody who, it sounds like set out to make really great traditional German beers, I'm sure you were just like fighting tooth and nail a little bit to, not have to fruit a milkshake IPA. But it's cool that you've come around and really enjoy the style. I think that's awesome.
Well, and we actually had, our first one that we made was June 15th last year. At our grand opening was when we actually had offered our very first one.
Yeah, well, and I'm definitely more into modern flavor, so it wasn't that I was against. There are brewers that they just like to stick traditional stuff, and they don't picture themselves making, or at least don't necessarily like making some of these styles. That wasn't necessarily a thing for me. I just didn't necessarily picture myself making fruited beers.
Right.
Really, honestly, some of that is just that you don't know what you like until you actually try it.
Right.
And so for us, it was really just kind of the trying it and be like, oh man, we do love this stuff. And so I'll have to at least keep making more of it.
Yeah, and beer drinkers like it too. So we obviously listen to what our consumers want as well, and try to give them more of what they would like to drink.
Well, and I think that's super important. I think that we went through, and I'm just saying we in general, right? I think we went through this period in beer where brewers weren't listening and breweries weren't listening to what the feedback was from what the people wanted. And it was more of just like, this is what I want to brew, and I'm not going to go to this fad or this new style. And I think that, you saw some breweries kind of fade away because they didn't want to adapt to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely say that's true. Yeah, and we and like I said, we're never, we've just learned to never say never. And so there, if some other new style comes along that we happen to enjoy and our friends and fans happen to enjoy, we'll certainly start making those as well. We're not stuck in saying we're only going to make German pilsners.
Right.
Yeah, we've had fun with the funky farmhouse. It's more like a mixture, a blend of New England style IPA and like a farmhouse saison. So you get to play around with some hops. We fruited them last time, so we're having fun like innovating and kind of creating those new type of beers, because that's the cool thing about brewing beer. It's an art, And
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, do you guys have predictions on what you think like the next style will be that will catch on? I mean, we're damn near halfway through 2020. What do you think that the new beer style will be in 2021, or what is something that you guys think that you can innovate on that might grab people's attention?
It's a good question.
It is, yeah. I think it's always hard to predict what's going to happen. Of course, I think that we will continue to explore these different things that we enjoy, like we said, like the funky farmhouse that kind of combines this kind of the saison with the New England style IPAs. I think we really enjoyed kind of going down that route. We may do some more fruited sour type beers. But as far as what new things will come out, I mean, it's anyone's guess.
Yeah. I don't know. We're having fun with like the New Englands. And it's nice, I think, that we offer the house beers where it's 6 like standard bold beers that you can rely on being there 95% of the time. So even if you're not into the latest thing, we hope that you can find something. We try to make something for everybody.
Yeah, maybe double dry hop stouts or something like that. Like big stouts that are double dry hopped.
Maybe.
Yeah,
never say never. Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know if that would work. Guys, this has been awesome. Is there anything that you want to get out there before I let you go that, we're looking into the future now? We're in the second week of June when people are listening to this. You guys are getting ready to open tomorrow.
Next week.
Well, we're in tomorrow. In Futureland, we're in tomorrow. Tomorrow you're opening. It's Thursday. This is Wednesday. And is there anything you want people to know, to expect, or just a message that you want to leave people with?
I think, and I know other places have said this before, but just a thank you to everyone for sticking with us. Like, we obviously have never been through opening, amongst coming out of the pandemic. So patience is going to be a big thing. We're trying to roll out a new POS system that incorporates, we have an online menu now, but it's switching it to where it's a new menu. Basically, you'll order from your table to minimize contact. So we're just trying a few different things to make sure that we're keeping everyone as safe as possible. And we're excited to open and kind of see what this new normal is, but be back to normal in some ways. And as far as our 1-year anniversary, which we were super excited about, it was going to be on June 23rd. We're going to look at a date this fall where we can have a real celebration for that. And we're going to try to do at least a few special things, whether it's, curbside cans or something like that in June.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to it. It's been awesome to watch you guys, grow and have success and really taste some of the changes along the way. It's been awesome. So congratulations on everything that you guys have accomplished in this last year. I know there's a lot more work that's gone into it than just, these last 12 months or so, but I think you guys should be proud of what you've been able to do. So
thank you.
Thank you.
It's been fun to watch you grow too, Well,
thank you. Yeah. We do what we can. So, Yeah, guys, your address real quick, where are you guys located for anybody that made it this far into the episode? Where can people go find you?
So address is, well, literally 1701 Gent Avenue. You'll turn and see a broken down brick building, which will hopefully have construction starting by the time you hear this podcast. And we are in this greenhouse, and you can park across the street. We're on Facebook, Instagram. You can go to our website and see what our beer menu is. Yeah, we look forward to seeing you.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. As I like to say, drink culture, know your city. We're out.